Write Night is a talk show with published authors, writers, and content creators discussing both the creative and technical sides of writing, as well as the industry surrounding it, from novels to screenplays to comics and more. And now, here's your host, author Travis I. Sivart.
Well, thank you so much, Cogsley. Much appreciated for that excellent introduction, as usual, considering it's a recording. Now, I am, first of all, going to welcome you guys, welcome everybody to Write Night. Tonight's topic is cryptozoology, and we'll get into that in a few moments. I do want to let everybody know we sometimes use adult language here and have adult conversations, but also, for those of you watching the live stream at Travis Tavern Talk, hold on, I messed it up. Live stream at twitch.tv/Travis Tavern Talk. We are recording a podcast right now. You are our live audience in chat here. It is subscriber only chat for everybody who's hanging out, and that's one of the perks of being a subscriber. You get to be a part of the live show. But if we don't reply to everything you say in chat, it's because we're trying to just make sure we reference the most relevant things. Now, for anybody listening to the podcast after the fact, just, in case you didn't pick it up already, we have a live show, and we record this in front of a live audience. So you will hear things like me going dinging, and that's to let everybody know I want to read some chat comments, and I think that's enough. We can go on. Let's do an intro. I am your host, Travis Sivart, and I write under multiple pen names, and tonight I'd like to talk about my pen name that best suits the topic tonight, and that is my Joe Wilson pen name, where I, first of all, with my new glasses and everything, I've come to realize I am starting to look like my book cover for my dad joke book.
Hey, look at that.
You always have.
Life imitates art.
Well, I never expected the, glasses to be quite the same style, but yeah, that's just me right there. Oh, Aaron, I put a new command. If you just put WN cast, that will do all of us at once.
Oh.
Make it a little easier.
Yeah.
But also under Joe
I knew a girl
Wilson,
in high school like that.
also, right as I'm holding up the kids' books, really. But that's how you get kids, in case anybody didn't know. My bunny is a zombie, and my puppy is a werewolf are two in my Monsters and Kids series that are
Very
available
cool.
on Amazon. And yeah, I'm looking at doing number 3.
Coming soon, my squirrel is a vampire.
My squirrel is a vampire.
So that's a better working
Maybe
title than
hamster.
I had My Squirrel Sucks, but I think his a vampire might be better. Actually, book 3 in the series is supposed to be Monsters After Dark. And it takes it from the monster's point of view as a child of a monster is, well, basically what goes on in the bedroom of a monster after dark as opposed to a human child after dark. So, stop making those eyes. Aaron is on something. Speaking of which, man, do I pass it to Aaron?
No, just half my face doesn't work, so.
See, I got to determine if I pass it over here to Michael and let Aaron mess with Michael more, or just pass it to Aaron so he gets some of this stuff out of his system. What do you think, Michael?
Pass it to Aaron.
Woohoo!
Wow, I passed it to Michael, he passed it right back to Aaron. Go, Aaron!
Hey, I'm Aaron Kennedy, technical writer for 20-some-odd years. I've been published in the Army Times, the NCO Journal. I have the book Persona Non Grata, the first of the Ships of Valor series, which is space pulp, kind of military sci-fi-ish. Currently working on the Icarus Black series, which takes place in the same universe as Persona Non Grata.
Very nice.
And to you, Michael, sir.
Thank you. My name is Michael Thompson. I'm an independent author and illustrator from Northern Virginia. And the book I will share with you today is my folkloric fantasy sea story adventure, Winslow Hoffner's Incredible Encounters. It's about cryptids, sea monsters, all sorts of epic urban legends that few people have beheld. But there's one man who's seen them all, Winslow Hoffner, the gallant fisherman. And he's regaling his tales of epic adventure to a couple of journalists who discover their small harbor town is harboring incredible secrets.
Very nice, thank you very much. And I do want to remind everybody that you can find our books on various places online. You can find my books at bit.ly/TravisBooks. That's bit.ly/TravisBooks. You can find Michael Thompson. Hey, there's Tracy. Here's to your bits, Tracy. Thank you for showing them to us.
Thank you.
Always awkward for your son to thank you for that one. You can find Michael Thompson's books at michaelthompsonbooks.com. Common spelling of Michael and Thompson. And you can find Aaron Kennedy, and that's, give me a second, I'll let him spell his name. He has the most fun way of doing it anyway. But you can find his books at bit.ly/Aaron Kennedy. That's bit.ly/AARON Kennedy, common spelling, like the president and senator, various dead and alive people. Purposeful awkward silence for anybody on the podcast there. Also want to let everybody know...
Where's AA Ron at?
AA? Alcoholics Anonymous? Is this because I poured a drink?
No, AA Ron.
Oh, right.
That's what the double A stands for.
I do want to ask everybody in our chat tonight, what are you guys reading? What are you working on for a writing project? What are you guys doing with words? Let us know right here in chat. We might not be able to read them all or any of them, but we're interested and want to create that conversation. For anybody who is listening via podcast, you can always email us your thoughts and interests at writenightshow@gmail.com. That's WRITENIGHT show at gmail.com. And I was just checking the email right now to see if we had anything. Other than that, I want to remind people we do have merchandise. If you type !merch, you will see it come up there. And anybody who's on the podcast, you can find it at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/tavern merch. Now, on to the other stuff. Guys, don't forget to join us tomorrow night for our Stealing for Survival game that we also post as a podcast on Monday nights for Talk of the Tavern, which is Toasts, Tangents, and Topics. Now, tonight's topic, what we're working with is cryptozoology. And cryptozoology is the possibly scientific, possibly quasi-scientific study of cryptids, which are, I don't want to say mythological creatures, though it border on that. But definitely folklore
undiscovered
and
or still looking for.
Yep.
There we go. Like anything that's crypt. Dead. No, wait, cryptic. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. It's mystery
Yeah.
creatures. And we're going to look at that.
Exactly.
We're going to tie it into a lot of different things. And I see, look at Michael, they're both like leaning forward. They're interested. They're engaged.
This is one of my favorite topics.
So, Michael, we'll start with you and let Aaron interrupt you.
Okay.
As we always do.
Exactly. So you've written a book that just totally centers around cryptids. So why don't you start by defining cryptids and giving a few... Hold on a second, let me do this real quick. Tracy, thank you very much for that subscription. Much appreciated there. Here's to you. 11 months at the tavern.
Nice.
Okay, so maybe a little definition of what they are and some examples of some cryptids that everybody would have heard of.
Sure. So cryptozoology is the study of hidden animals. And you get crypto is the Greek prefix meaning hidden, and then zoology, the study of animals. So the study of hidden animals, and the term was coined by the father of cryptozoology, Bernard Heuvelmans, who I gave a cameo in my Winslow book. The name of the marina is Heuvelmans Landing. It might be pronounced Wavelmans. I'm not sure.
He's also, if
Um,
I'm not mistaken, related to Dr. Seuss, and he named a city after him too.
Possibly. um,
Peter Capaldi as well. David Smith.
I don't know. And so
Both Doctor
probably
Who's.
probably the best known cryptid is Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And I'm holding up my figures because I'm that much of a nerd.
Also
We got
known
the
as
Yeti
Harry.
from the Himalayas.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this is considered more of a hoax, but the jackalope.
Oh, I thought it was like a
And I have
reindeer.
yeah, I mean there are definitely all sorts of different species that are under investigation, and I have other figures that I can't reach, but the Loch Ness monster is probably the granddaddy of them all.
And depending where you
And
guys...
in my book,
I just wanted to add in a few more before we move into the other stuff here.
Oh yes.
There are dozens of lake monsters around the world. There is some in New York State. The Great Lakes have some. There's other lakes around here. There's some in Florida. So those are pretty common. And then there's also things like the... Chupacabra. No, Chupacabra.
The Chupacabra. Yes.
You guys are going to have to use words. I don't have them tonight. So there's a lot of these...
I got you, man.
I appreciate that. Mothman here in Virginia and West Virginia.
Correct.
And a lot of those things. So what were you going to say about your book there, Michael?
In my book, there are even depending on how big of a nerd you are, there are even finer classifications of cryptids, and the classification that I found that I was most interested in, and I liked reading about the most, are what are called globsters. Globsters, globsters, and this is unidentified creatures that have washed ashore, and through the process of decomposition, their true origins have been obscured, and there is debate on what they are or were. And two of those that I focused on in my book, which there's about 6 or 7 that are highlighted in the book, but two of them that I focused on that were globsters were Gambo, which was an unidentified fish that had washed ashore in the Gambia in Africa, and in 1983, and they weren't sure if it was like a fish or a prehistoric dolphin or the last of the
I have
mosasaurs.
a quick question. Is this like real newspaper articles in our real world, or is this background in your book?
Real world.
Okay, good.
Real world. Yep. So this is the part of my book which takes which dips its toe into historical fiction, because you can look up any of the monsters in the book and they have some sort of real world tether, and that's sort of my basis for any of the creatures featured in each of the chapters. And Gambo is the first one. That was when I had gotten the original line for the book that came into my mind. Have you ever stared straight into the eyes of death and scoffed? And I put that aside. And then later on, I was doing my cryptozoology research because I love it. And I came across the story of Gambo. And there was very little known about Gambo because its body, shortly after discovery and before scientific evaluation, it was chopped up, buried in the sand. Parts of it were sold, and so the mystery was just immediately
probably
up
as
for
an
debate. And I thought,
or to help with erections.
someone sold. I mean, who knows? But someone sold the skull, I think, to, or so the story goes, to a tourist, and it was this monstrous, unknown skull. So it's out there somewhere. And I thought, this is perfect. I can do whatever I want with this, and thus with that real world basis, then I take my liberties, and then I onto that unknown species. I projected like the type of a type of creature like I had never seen in literature. I wanted to do a fire breathing fish, and I wanted to have something that could burn underwater, like magnesium burns underwater to create its own oxygen, and to just immediately start out the book with something that the reader had never seen before. It was super cool. And similarly, the book closes out with another globster from now this one's older, and this was the mystery of Octopus giganteus, and this was even further back in like the 1800s, I think. And this was a big mound of unknown organic material, and the original analysis, and this one was scientifically analyzed, the original analysis thought that it was a large octopus. Later on, they determined it might have been whale blubber, and then later on beyond that, they said, well, the cell structure looks different anyway, so now it's still up in the air. So in my book, the whale blubber thing is written off as a cover-up, and it is of course the kraken, the gigantic octopus. So yeah, so I like to focus on the lesser known stuff, because then you can do your own interpretation of that. Or if I do the most well-known, I heard it myself. If you do happen to do the more well-known stuff, then I like to take a different interpretation of that as well, and investigate what other species it could be, looking into prehistory, because that's another classification of cryptids, are prehistoric relics. So even Sasquatch, they believe, might have been Gigantopithecus, which was a large upright ape-like hominid. Now, what are your guys' favorite cryptids?
Let me ask some
That's
questions.
something I'd like to ask you.
Hold on. Let me ask a couple questions about what you said before we just run away.
Okay. No problem.
In your world, are these creatures unique single creatures, or are they a species that are out there?
It's a little bit of both. It depends. Some of them are just like megafauna, like they belong to, for instance, the beast of Busco. Now this was just a gigantic snapping turtle that was seen, and this is a really cool one. This was seen in Churubusco, Indiana, in a small town, and it was in a lake, and it was seen quite a lot. They had a whole like parade of people like coming to see the monster, until they determined it was dangerous, and then there was like parties that were going to go out to like hunt the beast, but then it disappeared and was never seen again. So
I've seen that musical number. Kill the beast, yeah.
And that, as well as my giant lobster in the book, Claus. Claus the giant lobster. Now this one is probably the one that I took the most liberty with.
Claus or Klaus?
It depends on the accent of the person.
Which side of the ocean?
I guess. Yeah, which side of the ocean? So Claus is a little bit more unique to my book. I named it Claus as a reference to Jaws. There's a few Spielberg references and like Jaws references in the book, so I thought, haha, it rhymes. But it's a big lobster, and it was just sort of like this image that was playing in my head of a massive lobster, and an exchange of dialogue between Winslow and the restaurant owner Keeley, where he tells a lot of his stories, where he had mistaken it for a sandbar, and Keeley's like, how? He's like, I was standing on it. He's like, standing on it? He says, he says, why? Because I thought it was a sandbar. And they got in, and so it was this whole and I was scouring the internet and scouring all my resources to try and find an instance of a giant lobster in cryptozoology, and there's not a lot. You can go back into mythology or like old sea maps and find I was able to find one lobster type monster on a sea map, but it was named Gambar, which was a little too close to Gambo for me, and I didn't want to name it that. So then I just had a flash of inspiration, and I thought I would look up the record-holding lobster, and it took place in the biggest lobster was scooped up in Nova Scotia.
It was like 4 feet,
which is where the book. It was like 4 feet. So that was my real world tether. But Aaron, what do you think? What's your favorite cryptid?
Ooh. So there's a crossover of the real world of previously undiscovered, the misidentified, stuff like that.
Yes.
Like, if you take a look at humans and the evolutionary path, if you go back far enough, like octopi or octopodes because it's Greek
Mhm.
origin.
Right.
Friggin', they would. If you told somebody, oh yeah, there's this slimy thing, it's got 8 or 7 arms and a penis, making it 8, friggin', that's a cryptid. But there's
Yeah.
other examples of this, like manatees and mermaids,
Yep.
friggin' the albino alligators of New York.
Hmm.
Yeah.
My favorite one is the giraffe, though. You've got this horse with stupid long legs, a crazy head, and it's got leopard spots with horns. Um, they're all kind of this really cool concept. But uh, even like Moby Dick in literature,
I
a
can
giant
interrupt real
white
quick.
whale. Okay.
Quick thank you to Andrea for her subscription tonight. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that support from all you folks. Okay, Aaron, go on.
So we got these ones in literature like Moby Dick, the giant white whale, or even Kevin from Up, this rainbow-colored bird with a thing there.
Yeah.
He was a cryptozoologist looking for these previous undiscovered creatures. Um, it's just so fun. And then we even get down to like Japanese movies, Godzilla, and all of the creatures that he's fighting, they're cryptids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, there's some out there that I really love. I made Emmy giggle with the pigzillas because pigs just get bigger and bigger with time. You can end up
Yes.
with a 2,000-pound hog running around, but they're clever, so they hide so they don't get killed. So previously undiscovered hogzillas running around is kind of cool.
You know,
Yeah, it is.
that's the age-old question of why do hogs wear bright red toenail polish? It's to hide in strawberry patches. And if anybody ever says, I've never seen a damn pig hiding in the strawberry patch, you go, exactly.
Mhm.
So they're very
Well, what's kind of cool about that, though, is if you look at camouflage patterns and stuff like this, Terry Pratchett makes a reference to it in one of his books. I think it's The Night Watch, where he talks about, hey, tigers, they're orange, they're brownish color, right? They're originally from like India and things like that, bright green, lush thing. But the way their patterns interact, it creates they're gone.
Uh,
They don't match their environments; they're complete contrast of their environments, which causes our eyes to just gloss over them. Which is kind of cool when you think of, oh, well, what's new and cool out there that we just have never spotted, or we only caught a glimpse of.
I think it would be fun to
They're
have a
finding
tiger as a cryptid.
Oh, friggin' giant saber-toothed tiger,
No,
friggin'
just a
one that's
regular
just ancient,
tiger.
things like.
You know, whether you're doing
Oh, what?
in a different world, you know, if you're working in a fantasy world that doesn't have tigers as a normal thing, and all the readers like, it's a tiger. Or if, you know, they are hunting a cryptid, thinking it's this ancient mystery monster, and it turns out to be a tiger and just eats them all. I think that's a happy ending.
Well, okay, so go back 400 or 500 years. Bears, okay.
Mm-hmm.
The word bear comes from brown. The reason they called it brown is because they were so scared to say its name that they didn't want it to appear. This thing is crazy dangerous.
that's a cool
Friggin'
fact.
It is, isn't it?
By
Yeah.
the way, I have
but-
viewers that will still do that with certain spirits and whatnot because of their Native American belief system. They will not utter the creature's name.
Yeah, Voldemort. Voldemort.
You know, if I heard that there was a
There-
wild Voldemort out there, I don't think I'd be too terrified because I'm imagining something burrowing with a star-shaped nose.
Yeah. Voldemort.
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 Oh, wait, no. What is it? Blind hairless moles? Come on, these are cryptids.
Yeah.
We just happen to have found them.
Lots of things were cryptids before they were found, like the duck-billed platypus, the okapi,
Dogs.
even the silverback gorilla. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. So there is possibility of more out there. Let's see. Are we still heading under the direction we want to? I want to make sure we're not missing anything because, and to clarify, here's a fun fact. Aaron's going to be on me. Oh, damn it! Aaron is going to be on with me Monday night on Talk of the Tavern, where we're also going to be talking about cryptozoology, but in a very different light and spin, with some drinking and a lot of tongue in cheek. So a lot of the stuff he hinted
You
at
guys
here.
aren't drinking?
I am. Ugh.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, Andrea adds in Stephen King's story, there was a mystery monster that turned out to be a bear. Yeah, it will be, matter of fact,
Oh.
Cool.
Andrea and Aaron Monday night, but also Michael has this huge passion and love for cryptids. And I had to like yank him off so we all get to talk because he's so passionate and loves it so much. And I'm like, hold on, we all.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no.
Time just goes like this around me. But yeah, no problem.
Well,
Cut me off.
it's a great concept. I mean, if you go to movies and stuff like that, there are cryptids everywhere. Okay, the Beowulf mythos is about a cryptid. Friggin' Moby Dick, Up, they're all cryptids. I mentioned Godzilla series. That's all cryptids all the way down.
I have cryptids that run through all my novels. They're the one thing that interlinks all the novels besides Jack Tucker. And it's a alien
Yeah, you're
species.
shapeshifter guys, right?
Right. They showed up. They
Yeah.
were octopus type creatures, intelligent octopus that came here through wormhole portal technology 45,000 years ago, started interacting with different species, realized that the land species is developing more, made contact with humans, but they're also the cause of a lot of the other stuff. For example, Loch Ness Monster and the Kraken were their genetic experiments once they realized humans were hostile and they had to create things to protect their hidden whatnots.
I love that. That's really cool.
And that also, I'm trying to think other stuff they did. I'm staring up at the books. But yeah, a lot of that stems off of that. And that's also the fun thing about making your own cryptids in whatever kind of world you're working, whether you're working horror or fantasy or folklore. Anything they don't know what it is a cryptid.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Perfect. Yep.
RUSs,
yes,
What's an RUS?
ROUS.
a rodent of unusual size.
Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry, dyslexia. Yeah, rodents of unusual size. Frankly, I don't think they exist.
Yes, that was fantastic. I
Well,
just
no,
saw
no.
that recently.
Well, the fact that he sees them and then plays it off.
Right. See, there's
He's like,
also,
no, they're fine.
there's also the fine line between cryptids and straight up horror monsters, and modern
Right.
mythology. What's the word for modern mythology?
Cryptozoology,
No. Modern
folklore,
urban legends. Urban
Yeah.
legends. Because a lot of our creatures that we're seeing in urban legends, such as Mothman and whatnot, are just cryptids or potentially cryptids.
Oh yes.
So what's your thought on that, guys? With your and also Michael asked a question earlier, and I had a question to ask him. So we've got two questions on the table: blending of urban legends and cryptids. And Michael asked, "What's your favorite cryptid?" Mine is chinchillas because they're adorable and real. They're like something straight out of fucking
What?
Pokemon.
They kind of are. Yeah.
And they
And that's the
bathe
type
in-
of thing that definitely would be a cryptid if it weren't known.
And they bathe in volcanic ash to remove the oil from their fur. That's
Yeah.
how they clean themselves. This is a
Yeah.
cryptid.
it's wild. I will say, you were talking about movie monsters
Mhm.
earlier, and I have this. I ran across a classic movie channel, and I've just been recording so much and watching it when I
Oh.
have time. They played. I watched The Blob for the first time, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I watched The Blob, and I watched the last half of Creature from the Black Lagoon. And Creature from the Black Lagoon, there are cryptids that go back into all sorts of and basically, I think it becomes mythology like the farther back you go. But there's all sorts of Gillman type characters in cryptozoology and mythology.
Oh, Kevin
And-
Costner.
Yeah, and the Blob I was familiar with. This is very interesting. Tell me if you've heard of this one. They call it, I believe, star jelly, and it's this unexplained, sort of slimy substance that they found around meteorites. And I don't know if it was sort of like rapidly heated silica or something. But there's these weird stories. I think they still don't know what it is, because there have been stories where people they touch it and it just disappears.
It's also often found in teenage boys' rooms, especially gym
Oh
socks.
jeez. Mm.
But no, no. So was
But
this an animal or just a substance?
It's a good question, and I think this is where your urban legends interacts with cryptozoology. I would say that it would be a cryptid if it were an organism, and it would be an urban legend if it were something non-living. But an animal can also be an urban legend as well.
Correct, such as the
So
alligators in the sewers.
right, so it would be a known creature, but in the wrong spot. Yeah,
That would definitely lend
yeah.
itself to. So, Weirdwin in chat says, until not too long ago, people didn't believe Tasmanian devils were real, so we'll throw that in there in the pile
Yeah,
of
there's another one.
cryptids. It's, so
I
favorite.
mean, friggin' chupacabra,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
goat sucker.
That's probably my favorite.
Really?
Just because it's a great word,
Yep.
chupacabra.
The fun thing about them is that it's so recent, and you don't realize how recent it is. I think it was only like 1994, like mid 90s, is when the word chupacabra came into existence, and it started in Puerto Rico.
How'd it get off the island?
Well, there were other blood-sucking type legends that arose, and they just started using the term. So
No.
there was, yeah.
That's when the first sightings were reported. But if I'm not mistaken, it comes from a historical legendary creature. But I'm looking that up real quick.
Maybe, yeah.
I'm making sure. Yeah, 1975, similar killings. Blamed on a 2018 reputed origin, and this is just Wikipedia because that's a good source for cryptid info.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, if you
Mhm.
even go with a simple explanation like bats, if somebody told you, oh yeah, there's this mouse, but it's got wings and it flies and it sucks blood, that's creepy-ish.
I know, yeah. Imagine finding the first bat. And then we have like cases of
Or a
megafauna,
snail.
like the Ahul, the massive howling bat squatch up in Chicago, which they're calling, or like the Chicago Mothman.
By the way, Michael,
Wordowin has some star jelly information.
I think I need to, and I'll let you read that off in just a moment. I think I need to bow to your knowledge on this one because I'm seeing, and by the way, the name is attributed to a Puerto Rican comedian who coined the label in '95.
There we go. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool fact.
But it's also a great insult. Listen here, chupacabra.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing early reports. Wow. The picture on Wikipedia, by the way, looks exactly like a slee stack from Land of the Lost.
Oh yeah, yeah. The original was kind of an alien type thing, and sometimes it had like chiropteran wings as well.
Okay.
That's the version I like.
You want to read this off here?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Wordowin, star jelly, also called astromyxin. Astral jelly is a gelatinous substance sometimes found on grass or even branches of trees. According to folklore, it is deposited on the earth during meteor showers. Reports of the substance date back to the 14th century and have continued to the present day. So I wonder if that was the inspiration for the Blob, because it's very much like how the movie starts.
I mean, I did a quick scan of it, and it looks like, there's some theories like it's frog puke or something very similar to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Which chemically, I mean, okay, this kind of makes sense. Freaking, you apply any kind of heat, and it vaporizes. You can, because you can see weird stuff with physics, or chemistry, because there's all kinds of stuff like, oh yeah, we can freeze carbon dioxide and make ice out of it, and then you drop it in water and it turns into fog. The fog is another great thing. Literally the thing. But
good.
yeah, there's all these kind of unknown realms of the universe, the great mystery, create some of these things for us, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing when the natural explanation is actually just a very is kind of unnatural in itself. Like UFOs that turn out to be. Did you hear about the weird silky UFOs going over? I think it was some sort of British amphitheater, and it turned out that it was clusters of floating spiders on their silk, like on silk parachutes.
That's awesome.
Just
Oh.
but an obscene amount of them. Yeah.
If you ever drive through like Texas or the South or whatnot, you'll see trees, and the top branches are completely encased in spider web type substance,
Right.
and like 3-4 feet. But it's not necessarily spider webs. Sometimes it's a fungus that grows on the tree that
wow.
creates these filaments.
But there are spider webs. There are colonies of spiders that do cover whole trees. But for some reason, I'm thinking that's in Africa.
Well, see, most of the time spiders are solitary until they mate.
Right.
So if you see one web, you see one spider. Is kind of the running thing. So they don't like to be together because when their webs merge, one of them kills the other one.
Mm.
See, I really like this is something. This is something some of my favorite writers will do. They'll take something commonplace, and with a nice little twist on it, will turn it into something horrible, or something else it does is Japanese horror, especially Japanese horror movies. But
Oh, you're saying horror.
tomato. Um, See, I've lived in Florida, where we have a couple different cryptids. Right.
The Florida Man.
What is the Florida Man?
Oh, you're not familiar with? Oh, let me educate. The Florida Man is a mythical beast, approximately 5'10" to 6'2". He is hopped up on meth and things like that, but he does whatever he wants. This results in writings about him in the local newspapers that make him appear everywhere. Man breaks into car, steals steering wheel, runs away.
Thank you. Let's move on back
Llama's
to
on the
where
loose.
we were. Yeah, that's not a cryptid. That's a local. There's a difference. Now I grew up in South Florida, just in Fort Lauderdale, just north of Miami, and just east of the Everglades. Which, if I had been born 50 years before, I would have been living in the Everglades. Actually,
It's good legends there. Yeah.
one of the last.
Oh, where the
places
giant anacondas are, right?
They are
Oh,
there
I think
now,
so, yeah.
but in reality, and they're not anacondas. They're boa constrictors. They're pythons. Pythons. That's the one I want.
Yep, ball pythons.
Not ball pythons.
yeah.
No, we're looking at Burmese pythons. So they're getting much larger. Ball pythons, 4 to 6 feet. These much larger, and they're actually competing with the local apex predators such as alligators and winning.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is definitely like, can you imagine seeing like a 12 to 18 foot long snake wrestling and devouring an 8 foot long alligator?
I saw a video of one swimming, and it was just massive, and it was as thick as a log.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is how legends start.
Yeah.
Easily.
This is why humans kill things with fire.
Yeah. You got the skunk
and
ape down
pitchforks,
there.
sir. Don't forget pitchforks.
Yeah, pitchforks.
Michael,
Classic.
you're correct. We have the skunk ape, which is a derivative of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. What else do we have down there? It's
They
Well,
have
I mean,
one monster that
crocodiles.
they
Yeah.
have, wait, what? Aaron?
Big alligators. Yeah.
Alligators in Florida. Crocodiles are generally African.
Oh, okay. Is that
Or
like
the Asian continent.
kangaroos in Austria, right?
That's right. It's but yeah, they're very different. If you ever meet one at a bar, you could tell by what they drink which one they are. It's a true
Well,
story.
I always understood when they depart you, because an alligator will see you later, crocodile will see you after a while.
That's true too. It's true too. Um, so I'm trying to think of what other things we have in Florida, just to keep the cryptid conversation going there. Um,
These giant bugs that fly while butt to butt.
you talk about the mating stink bugs.
Yes, the love bugs.
Yeah.
The marsh had me thinking of the Honey Island swamp monster, but I believe that's Louisiana.
Tell us a little bit about that.
And that's, well, I mean, it was kind of, it's like Swamp Thing, you know. It's like I think it has a few different. Some people think it's more reptilian. Some people think it's more ape-like. Just draped in mossy, you know, swampiness.
Now, speaking of Swamp Thing, oh, go ahead, Chris.
When I was in Boy Scouts in Florida, as we're sitting in the Everglades camping, is when our scoutmaster decided to tell us the story of the, trying to remember what he called them. There wasn't a technical name. It was like, you know, tree men or swamp men or something.
Yeah.
But they're basically, and it's almost a sort of a Krampus type legend, where there's
Perfect.
these super silent, quiet humanoid things that look like they're covered with moss, and they're very tall, not like 6 foot, but like 10 foot, 12 foot tall. So they look like trees when they're standing still, just in the swamp, just a thin thing standing up. But if they find people doing wrong in the swamp or wandering away from the group, specifically the Scoutmaster aimed it towards, if you're a bad boy, they come get you. But I'm trying to make it a little less
Right.
Boy Scout around the campfire here. But they would actually come to people's houses.
Krampus.
Because, like I said, when I was 14, the place I lived had only been built a few years before. So 5 to 8 years before I moved in here, it was swamp. Which is great looking back on my childhood, how I used to swim in all these man-made lakes and stuff and canals, and realizing they are directly connected to the Everglades. At any point in time, you could just brush up against an alligator, or, you know,
Right.
a copperhead, or a coral snake, and all these kind of
Yeah. It's
modern.
the unknown. Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to jump off trees into these bodies
Spooky.
of water.
Spooky.
The things that age and wisdom and terror brings with you. But yeah, these things would, and I would have concerns as I'm laying in my bed that one of these men are outside my window staring in, waiting to see if he could get in to get to me.
Well,
Right.
you were in Florida, so that was possible.
Good.
The Florida man.
Predecessor, the Florida man.
Now you mentioned the Swamp Thing.
Mm.
If you ever get a chance,
Yeah.
go back and watch the 1990s series Swamp Thing. It was on USA when they were doing kind of inventive television, when they were half Skinamax, censored Skinamax after midnight. But before that, they had this like 8 o'clock hour or 8 o'clock to midnight hour where they did just really, really cool, inventive things. And this was one of the first like comic book movie adaptations that really kind of worked.
Yeah.
But it hit a lot of these cryptozoology things because you got this mad scientist creating experiments. Swamp Thing was a failed assassination attempt, but all these other things that he went up against was kind of neat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool seeing, you know, a lot of comic book characters, superheroes, kind of have their bases in like monster legends.
Mhm.
You know, like the Thing or the Incredible Hulk. Like, you know, they
Spider-Man.
kind of pulls from Jekyll Hyde. You know, yeah, they're monsters, but they fight crime.
So, where do you think Frankenstein would fall? Would he be a cryptid?
Frankenstein. He wouldn't be a cryptid.
He's man-made, so
I mean,
But couldn't you have a man-made cryptid, something that got out of a lab?
yes, you can.
Oh,
In fact,
absolutely.
Mothman. One of the theories about Mothman was that it was some sort of mutant. But Frankenstein himself, I would have to think there would have to be like something like it. You know, it would have to be like some sort of modern legend that's
well,
like
your golems
Hmm.
and stuff like that are
Yeah.
great ones. The clay
Golem.
golems.
Yeah.
I've been corrected,
sure.
by the way. Frankenstein's monster.
Oh yeah.
Frankenstein was the doctor. That
Frankenstein's
is
monster.
correct. Solomon
That's
Grundy.
true.
But yeah,
That's
let's go.
I believe Frankenstein was
Solomon.
the monster, sir. Frankenstein's monster was
The victim.
a reasonable person by all accounts.
He was.
Yes.
And if you read the book, the only reason he went on any kind of killing spree is because he just couldn't get away from them. They wouldn't leave him the hell alone.
And I think even if we did have some sort of modern Frankenstein-esque legend, like some sort of like reanimated corpse, that would probably be an urban legend before it would be a cryptid.
I have one.
Well, I mean, the entire zombies thing.
Zombie, yeah. There have been some zombie stories where people were dead and then they came back. Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to see without the light.
It's the talent agency.
The talent agency book. They can see it on their camera, and you can't see it on yours very well. And I can't get the light better without bleaching everything out, Aaron.
What you got in the talent agency?
Yeah. It's with that. It's set slightly in the future, and they're doing genetic and nanotechnology experiments on people, and creating kind of your first layer of superheroes. But also, it could definitely be taken as things that go bump in the night.
Perfect.
So you could definitely lean towards the horror side.
Did we hear what your favorite cryptid was, Travis?
I don't think I have one.
Oh.
Yeah, it depends, because I've never, besides what I grew up around, which would have been, Bigfoot and the Yeti and whatnot. And I'm trying to think back to episodes of X-Files or In Search of. When I was younger, I definitely had a fascination with the Loch Ness Monster and the Bermuda Triangle. And not that the Bermuda Triangle is a cryptid, but it is a theory that it's, giant sea creatures dragging things down.
Yeah, the Bermuda Beast.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't think I have any one that stands out. I'm much too eclectic to nail down just one.
Okay.
What about a favorite cryptid in a movie?
Ooh.
I mean, RUSs are great and all, but friggin' there's such a wealth of stuff that's out there of writers coming up with their own kind of cryptid concept or interpreting it in new and interesting ways. If you ever watched the movie, I think it's Outlander. It's a space alien comes back to Earth, which was a seed colony, but he ends up fighting a dragon, which was on his ship. It's basically the Beowulf legend. But it's so great how they kind of did it from there.
See, we also have H.P. Lovecraft tied into a lot of cryptid legends and twisted them into his own mythology in the long run, connecting larger power above it.
Dagon,
I think the best part about him was the fact that he had a shared kind of universe in a soft shared universe, so that not only did he create these things, but he created these books, which other authors referenced the books to create this kind of shared universe. So we got the elder gods running around here, but what's even better was our books became the cryptids in it because, we found this or we referenced this, which in turn opens up another avenue to kind of explore here.
It was a neat, it's a neat kind of horror where it's like everyone knows like a piece of the truth, and then you as the reader sort of like put it together. The Necronomicon sort of appearing across his stories and other people's stories. And
Verata, necktie.
Nikito, The Evil Dead.
That in the 80s, they actually did sell copies of the Necronomicon in Walden Books.
Right.
Yeah, and I had a friend who had a copy who's like, this is real.
It appeared in the fiction first, and then he encouraged other people to write into their fiction, and then they did, and then so people are like, is this a real book? And then eventually people like make their own books.
Right.
Well, and I mean, it goes back to like The Mummy, the movie Brendan Fraser. They referenced the Necronomicon as a real tome, but that goes way back to Lovecraft, friggin' 80 years prior.
There's also an Egyptian, book of the dead as well.
Yeah.
So, and then it all, then it's like this figure eight, real world fiction, urban legend.
And that is.
Well, we say.
Go ahead.
Oh, we say these things often enough in enough places, they become real. we're creating a shared reality.
Yep.
It's really gaslighting your audience, but it's kind of neat.
It's a fun thing to contribute to.
Mhm.
It's part of the
We
human
have
psychology.
the Lake Champlain monster.
That's true. We have a lot of lake monsters in the U.S.
Champ-
We
We have a lot of lakes in the U.S.
Lake monsters in the U.S. There we go. Yep, we got one in Lake Champlain, Hudson River, Lake Erie, Bear Lake. Let's just go to this list right here.
Hudson one starts with a K. Is it Kipsey? What is it?
Hold on. There's like 50 of them.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'll throw a link in the chat here real quick, so everybody can check this out real quick. There's a list of cryptids from a weirdo in there, and there's that.
Oh yeah, the Jersey Devil. That's a scary one.
Tell me more.
Well, that sort of gets into the paranormal aspect of like the intersection between paranormal and then is this an animal? But the original legends of it were paranormal. It was, the story was this woman who, I mean, there's a few different stories of it, but one was this woman who like had so many children, and then she was like having like, I don't remember exactly, like her 9th child or something, and then she's like, and then she was like cursing, you know, her this pregnancy, and then the story goes that it was born, and then it turned into a demon, it morphed, and then killed the family, and then took off into the woods, and it's and then it looks like a unholy mixture between a horse, a goat, and a bat.
But I love the took off into the woods, okay? Because no, don't get me wrong. That's one of those instinctual level of kind of fear and paranoia things, because it goes, oh, what scared us? The forest.
Yeah, and then it could be anywhere.
Or the lake.
Yeah, and
The
connecting
dark
to the
unknown.
beginning where Travis brought up the werewolf from his werewolf book, there are modern werewolves. The Skinwalker Ranch, which was, and that's Native American mythology, which is sort of becoming circling with modern urban legends. And then the Beast of Bray Road, another one. So there's all these Wolfman type things.
I am looking at the eel pig of Harrington Lake from Kentucky.
What? I love the sound of that. Let me look that up.
Yeah, the eel pig.
Yeah. Michael, you might want to bookmark those 2 links that were put up. One has the Atlas Obscura that I very much support and love. This place has a map of the U.S. with the different cryptids.
There we go.
The US. So it is interesting, including freshwater.
Look at this eel pig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at him. I love him. Oh man, I love it, and I love seeing artists. Oh, look at this!
Renditions?
Look at this interpretation of the Honey Island swamp monster.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like chicken legs. He's got an alligator head, and then he's all hunched over like some type of baboon.
Looks like.
Oh, these are wild.
Here's some fodder for another Winslow book.
Yeah, I love looking this stuff up, and you know, finding a Winslow monster. You know what I mean? And or then putting my spin on it. The sequel will have the Loch Ness monster in it in a unique way, by the way.
Okay, I've got to read a question from chat here. Witch's Door, good evening, good to see you.
All right.
Sorry you're hungover. She asks,
Hello.
So, question. If, say, for example, a werewolf gets a hip replacement or knee or other joint replacement, when they turn, would the leg or arm or whatever remain human? And if so, how humorous would that be?
Well, especially if it was the leg. Well, no, okay. So I'm going to point this out, okay? If we're following the laws of physics and things like that, mass conservation and all that, that means that we're running into a 100-pound werewolf stays a 100-pound werewolf, okay? That doesn't make sense, so there's got to be a mythological aspect of this, a little bit of magic.
Mm-hmm.
Something we can't explain, some kind of energy transference.
Well, this is
So
why they're
therefore,
always
using
larger.
that logic, the arm...
That's why you have huge wolves that are werewolves because they are still staying the same mass and weight.
Mass. Right. Terry Pratchett does this with his vampires, and he goes, "You can turn into a bat." No, I can turn into a great many bats.
Mm.
Well, and right, it's like, but once I do, friggin', it's collective knowledge, so you don't know, so it's hard to make sure that they all come around and control them all.
Wow. That's
Right,
pretty.
it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. You turn into a swarm of bats because of the laws of mass and conservation. Excuse me,
I think from
Or one massive bat.
or one massive bat,
that can't
which
fly now.
Dracula did that well.
That's true.
They can't what?
They can't fly now because they're massive. They're not a hummingbird.
Oh, yeah.
um, there's a reason hummingbirds are teeny. And that actually, it's interesting. If you're going with a scientific bend on it and you have a shapeshifter who, and again, depends on the type of werewolf. If you're turning into the classic Lon Chaney werewolf, yeah, hip changes with you, no big deal. But if you're turning into the one that gets the reversed bent knees and can run on all fours as well as upright, I would only assume whatever replacement is internal would snap out of the body and tear through the skin, and the guy would wake up the next day bleeding to death, missing a leg or a hip because it didn't change with him.
Yeah, I don't think it would cooperate with him unless it
Well-
was some type of like magic where you just poof, you
Right.
know.
Well, I mean, one of the cool things they've always kind of done is werewolves kind of have this regenerative factor in them.
Right,
Okay,
yeah.
so they're constantly healing. Which, when you look at the transformation from man to wolf, they're going through extreme pain, like your Deadpool. Okay,
Yeah.
so they're literally going nuts in pain during that time. So how much recovery of that mental piece are they waiting? Does it take them a full night to kind of get back to their senses, which would explain the rampage because it's an animal in pain.
Now, a couple of comments in chat echoing exactly what we're talking about right now. Some came up before, some during. The werewolves are also famous for regeneration, so when it changed, the replacement would fall out and then be healed. So they would come back without the replacement, but it would be healed when they became human. And Witch's Door says, how bad would the injury have to be to have the rapid healing factor canceled? I assume missing a limb, losing a limb, would be beyond, not
Right.
superhero levels, but mythology levels, because,
Well, okay, so we shoot werewolves with silver bullets, right?
right?
I was about to ask about that. Yeah.
Okay, so a common just kind of rule of thumb: you shoot somebody, one bullet, 1 pint of blood per minute. Okay, you lose 5 pints, you're dead. Okay, werewolves can overcome a regular bullet, but not a silver bullet.
Yes.
Now, silver's got weird healing stuff that happens with that as well. So there's actual physics involved in that. It kills friggin' loose ions. So, which is why it sterilizes things like that. But, so we got there, like modern mirrors. Modern mirrors don't have silver in it, therefore vampires are now reflective.
Boom. Boom. Yeah. Because silver was how mirrors were, and I think also like it was even involved in like film as well, and that was a component of why they weren't showing up in pictures or like
Silver oxide.
Yeah,
Yep. Because it reacts with sunlight.
that's really cool when you look into it. It's just like this common knowledge, but it all traces back to like the silver element.
Well, it's also stuff that we forget. We haven't made a mirror out of silver in 50 years.
Right. Yeah.
Since aluminum became commonplace.
Well, that's something else I'm wondering. Is there other metals out there that would be similar that we're now using in medical procedures? But without going into
See,
that,
this is all...
we're about to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So here's what I'll say. We're still discovering or inventing new cryptids. These things are still happening. You pointing out the origin date of the chupacabra brought that very much to light. We see this every day on social media where one person says something, whether they're making a joke or whether they're just a dumbass, and then suddenly a month later...
Hey, why'd you look at me?
As I was saying, we still invent modern myths. Now, some of these might lean political, some of them might lean social, some of them might lean mythical. But we still do this, and I tell you what, here's to that imagination. May some of these things be true one day.
I hope we find the Sasquatch.
That would be cool. To bring us out of this...
Oh, he's up in the mountains reading a book right now.
Oh, I have a book for him. Anyhow, just so you know, we do read messages out of the mailbag, so if you guys want to email us, rightnightshow@gmail.com. If you have some thoughts about
Send us your favorite cryptid.
That would be very cool. Email us your favorite cryptid and why. Or
Please
if you've
do.
encountered one, that would be cool too.
That's a good story.
And that's right, WRITE, night, NIGHT, show@gmail.com. Make sure you catch our next episode where we're going to be discussing what scares us as we get closer to Halloween here in 2020. That can go all over the place. And don't forget to check out the other podcasts such as Stealing for Survival and Talk of the Tavern. I do want to thank everybody who showed their love and support, first and foremost by showing up. Thank you for that, guys. Thank you for being here, interacting, chatting. But I also want to throw a special thank you out there to Angela Chat and Spacey Tracy is here for their subscriptions tonight, and Scribbler for his host and raid. Much appreciated. Appreciate all those bits that came in from Spacey Tracy. And
Hey, Michael J. Lawrence.
Michael J.
Thank you.
Lawrence.
Michael
popping in.
Lawrence
Right at the
cheered.
front. Thank you.
X100.
Thank you for that. But I also want to make sure I throw a thank you out there to our other supporters on Patreon like Triple U and Ethan Strauss, as well as Berta and Musical Wizardry that have subscribed monthly on PayPal. Okay, let's do some outro music and move on with this. We'll catch all of you later.
Fun show.
Thank you for joining author Travis I. Sivart and the other writers, content creators, and all-around amazing people for our discussion here on Right. Join us again soon, and until you do, make sure you create with passion, enjoy the journey, and remember, every night can be right now.